Hillsborough Television News Breaks, connecting you to county events.
We call this conference this morning to bring attention to a critical issue affecting the Black community and minority voters. It just doesn't affect Hillsborough County. It doesn't just affect Florida. It affects every minority voter throughout the country who finds themselves the target of a thinly concealed and nationwide effort to suppress the vote in the upcoming elections. As a Black woman and as an elected official and a representative of the people, it appalls me that the right to vote, which people fought for, marched for, and yes, sometimes died for, is now under threat. And that's why it is so important that the Black community participate in the upcoming elections. This year marks the 47th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That is the very law that outlawed discrimination in voting. And so we'd like to address some issues this morning pertaining to our community and why it's important for them to get out and vote in the upcoming elections. At this time, we will now hear from County Commissioner Les Miller.
It's important that citizens know that a primary election will be held on August the 14th. Your vote will decide who will stand as your local and state representatives, and ultimately who will represent you and have a voice in local and state government. Also, many elections will be decided on August the 14th because only 2 people are running in many elections. This makes the August 14th election all that more important. But there's some key information you need to know before your voice can be heard. July 16th, 1 week from today, that's only 1 week from today, is the last day to register to vote for the August 14th primary. You must be registered and be a registered voter, and vote at your polling place and have your new voter registration card. Again, July 14th is the deadline. If you're registered and you have not received your voter registration card, you should call your supervisor of elections office at 813-612-4180. Again, that's 813-612-4180. And remember, July 16th is the deadline. I call on each and every one of you to get ready to stand up and say your vote will be counted. You will not be stopped from voting. It is your constitutional right to have that exercise, that right to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, people gave up their lives, shed their blood for every person in this country to have the right to vote. Whether they're Jew, Gentile, Protestant, or Catholic, people gave up that right, gave their lives for that right to vote. Please do not let anyone stop you from voting. We have a sign over here to the right that gives all the ID that you need to vote, but don't let them stop you from voting. We'll now hear from School Board Member Doretha Edgecomb.
Thank you, Commissioner. Voters have 3 ways to choose how they want to cast their vote for both the primary and the November general election. They can vote by mail, they can participate in early voting, or they can wait until election day. August 14th for the primary and November 6th for the general election. Every voter needs to know that under the new election law, early voting days were cut. However, Hillsborough County is under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, so we still have 14 days for early voting. What is also important this election year is that if voters choose to mail their ballot for the first time, for the very first time, they don't need a stamp. All they need to do is drop the ballot in the mail. Remember, voting is the first act to building a community, to building a better state, and ultimately a better nation. So we encourage you to vote. All you have to do as a voter and a citizen is decide how and just do it.
If you're a Hillsborough County voter, and if you decide to vote on election day, it is important that you prove who you are. And you must have a valid government-issued photo ID as well as a signature ID when you go to the poll, such as a Florida driver license or military ID. We have a listing of these documents that will be accepted, and you can also get them at your supervisory election office if anyone is interested. But we want to encourage you that when you go to the poll and submit your ID, we want you to remember to tell those at the poll that you are there to have your vote to be counted.
The primary election will be held on Tuesday, August 14th, 2012. However, early voting began July 30th and end on August 11th. Not all voting places are open for early voting, so citizens will need to check early voting locations by going to the Supervisor of Elections website for a list of locations and times. Early voting is an option that more and more of our citizens are chosen. We want citizens to remember that their vote is their voice. Their voice must be heard by voting. They will honor the courage of all those who sacrificed for us to have the right to vote.
It took one man and one woman and another man and another woman to form the groundswell of marches and protests that led to the historic passage of the Voting Rights Act. They did not shy away from their responsibility to stand up because they knew they were also standing for future generations to come. Your generation and my generation that are present here today. Remember, your voice won't count if you don't cast a ballot. Senator Joyner will come to us with closing comments.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mathis. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is that you vote and encourage everyone you know to vote. Those you elect will serve you for the next 2 to 6 years, and your choice in November will determine who will guide our country for the next 4 years. As Vice Mayor Mathis reminded us, we must rise to the responsibility that our forefathers fought so hard for and call on our families, our friends, our fellow citizens, our neighbors, our co-workers to rise with us, because together our voices will be heard.
For more news and information, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or watch us on YouTube. This program was brought to you by Hillsborough Television. Visit our website at htvonline.org.